Ladies and gentlemen, today on the program, one of the most unique drummers I know and one of my favorite people in the music business. Yes, today on the show we have the great Sarah Kay of the band Catl. If you don't know Catl, they are a band from Toronto. They are a two-piece juke joint blues band. And what does that mean? Well, Catl plays rock and roll, rockabilly, blues music inspired by, I would say, the classic blues stuff. If you can picture Robert Johnson or Muddy Waters and a beat-up old guitar and a slide. That's Catl, sort of a modern version of that. And Sarah Kay plays a two-piece drum setup, floor tom and a snare drum, and she puts a tambourine on the snare drum, and her partner, musically and otherwise, Jamie, plays the slide guitar, and the two of them go up there and they just slam. They are a great band, and I had the pleasure of playing with them a couple of times when I was in Hiroshima Hearts. They were great shows. They're a super fun time, and we got to know those guys a little bit doing that, and Sarah Kay, man, she's great to watch. She is a great singer, great player. Very, very interesting. And what I like about Sarah Kay and her story is that it's unconventional. And you know by now, if you listen to the show, that I like unconventional. And it's instructive. Her story is great. Here's a person who was a keyboard player, and she joined Catl as such, with no intention of ever being a drummer. And then a funny thing happened. You know, time went by, drummers came and went, and eventually, out of frustration, Jamie said, "Hey, Sarah Kay, why don't you play the drums in this band?" And she took on that challenge. And what's great about it is that she did not go the usual route. Instead of setting up a drum set and learning how to play it, she went her own way. And she created this unique setup that she plays, and she plays it in a way that nobody else can. And she dances around and she jumps, and the whole thing is a spectacle, and it's great. And it goes to show you, kids, you never quite know how life will unfold. You have to put yourself in the game, as she did, and then you have to sort of take on the challenges that come along, or the opportunities if you want to define them that way. So all of a sudden, Sarah Kay is a drummer, and she's uncovered this passion that she has, and she does it really, really well and in an interesting way. And for me, that's important. The lesson here is that you have to remain open. You've got to be in the game, and you've got to stay open to what comes along in terms of opportunity, in terms of challenge, you know. And suddenly, Sarah Kay is touring the world as a drummer. Catl plays in Europe a lot, and we spend a lot of time in this interview talking about Europe, talking about playing there and what it's like for bands who go over there from North America, as I have had the luxury of doing as a member of Sarah Smith's touring band over the past couple of years. It's a really fun conversation, and, you know, I'm always looking for the lessons, and the lessons come through in this one too, about being open, about letting life happen, about seeing opportunity and taking it and rolling with it. You know, sometimes as a musician, sometimes in any line of work, you've just got to roll with what's happening. It's not always easy to do, and touring life, especially at the indie level, can be a grind when you're doing the miles and dragging the gear and late nights and strange beds and all that fun stuff that I've talked about before. Sarah Kay knows what it's all about. We talk about it. We laugh about it. It's really fun, and I'm really glad that she had the opportunity to come on the show, and she agreed to do so. So thank you again, Sarah Kay, for that. And if you haven't heard Catl, you should definitely go and check them out. That's Catl, Juke Joint Blues. A lot of fun. There's video on YouTube, and they're on all the places, the Spotifys and that kind of stuff. Go support them. Get them on vinyl. If you're a vinyl person, Catl on vinyl is great. They were made for vinyl. This kind of throwback sound. Really, really cool. So check them out. In other podcast news, if you've been following on Facebook, you know that we're getting ready to do our first run of merch. The great Denny Goche has a t-shirt business, of course, apart from all the other stuff he does. And we've done a John Huff Podcast t-shirt. So if you want to support the show, by all means, please order one from us. We did a very, very limited run. It's a short run. It's kind of an experiment. It's a test. If you go to the website, john-huff.com, and you click on shop, you can find the t-shirts there. We have men's and ladies. They are quite lovely. You will also find the November book, which is the tour book I wrote a couple years ago. We still have copies of that available. You will also find a downloadable PDF, my ebook, DIY Publicity for Indie Musicians. So you can check that out if you are an indie musician and you're looking for ways to publicize yourself. That's all there. T-shirts are there. Would love your support. If you dig the shirts and you can order them off of the website, please do so. I'm beginning to ramble. It's snowing in November. That never sits well with me. So let's pretend the sun is out. It's a hot, sweaty night at some great little gritty club in France or Cincinnati or Toronto or somewhere in Germany or Serbia, as Sarah talks about. Catl's about to go up. We're going to get sweaty. We're going to dance. We're going to have a great time. Let's listen to Sarah Kay. And thanks, everybody. And hey, Denny! Roll intro! Hello! You're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay! I haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Well, like the last time we did this interview thing was like forever ago.
That was years ago on the Groove Machine blog.
Yeah.
We have subsequently played together though. Like
we had, a couple of times at least. But I mean, that's been, I don't know when you left Hiroshima Hearts, but that's been a few years now.
It's been 1 year.
Has it really only been a year?
It's only been a year.
You just seem so busy with all the other things that you've been doing. I feel like I've just been seeing you, at least to my impression of seeing what you're posting, seems like you're just busy playing with people all the time. So in my brain, I've made that into multiple years of you successfully drumming and touring after Hiroshima Hearts.
There was a period of time where I was touring and playing and still in Hiroshima Hearts.
Okay, yeah.
So it may have looked that way.
Right.
And then at a certain point, it became I was touring and playing so much that the band was becoming annoyed with me.
For sure.
Which they had the absolute right to do. And so I had to make this agonizing decision about whether I sort of go off and pursue this.
Yeah.
Like the part where you get paid.
Yeah.
Or do I stay in Hearts and, and I figured at my advancing age, now was kind of the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's cool to have the opportunities, again, as you know now, having played over in Europe, like it's a totally different thing over there. And it's actually really great, so I'm sure that you're super glad that you've had that experience.
Yes, but I do not feel super glad about having left the band. I still don't.
Yeah, well, life is a winding road.
A long and winding road. Somebody, I think the Rolling Stones called it a long and winding. Oh, no, that was the Beatles. I'm sorry. Never confuse the two.
Yeah, that was Sir Paul McCartney.
Sir Paul.
Yeah.
Have you ever played with Paul McCartney, Sarah Kay from Catl?
No. No, and there are no collaborations on the horizon as far as I know.
I have a good friend called Ken the Zen who is a regular on this podcast, and he went to the big, a couple summers ago, there was like the big thing where everybody in the world played, like The Who and Bob Dylan and McCartney, and it just went on. You remember this? And
vaguely.
Somehow it happened. It was in Arizona, I think.
Okay.
Somehow it happened that his like seats on the grass got upgraded to like within the first 5 or 6 rows one night.
Oh, crazy.
So it was like he was there, like Paul McCartney, whoosh, right there. All the people. Crazy, right?
Yeah, totally crazy.
And he's the biggest Beatles fan I know.
Yeah.
And he's really made me one too.
Yeah.
I always was, but not at this level.
Sure.
I thought surely Ken was going to hook up with Paul. He was right there.
Yeah.
We can make this happen.
But good for him, though. I mean, that's great that such a huge fan got their seats upgraded. I mean, that's the person that deserves to have that happen to them, you know?
When does that happen to anybody? I've never heard of this before.
No, not in my life. I'm not the one that wins anything.
But you are a winner. That's the thing. You exist as a winner.
Thanks, John.
How have you been? I haven't talked to you in way too long.
Yeah, good. We've been good. We've been busy. Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, we released our latest record, Bide My Time Until I Die, last May in Europe on Beast Records in France.
Great.
And it was great. They are great. And we were over there for about a month in France and Germany, mainly to support the release of that record, which was great. And that kind of started like the busyness of supporting that record release, which we released in North America in the fall. So since then, it's been pretty go, I would say. We naturally kind of take a little bit of downtime in the winter when the weather turns to absolute crap, and it just becomes not fun and not so safe to drive being a Toronto located band. We don't want to get stuck in a crazy snow or ice storm when we're trying to get to somewhere beautiful like Nashville or Memphis. So we have to make some calculated choices. You know what I mean?
Or Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yes. But yeah, same thing. Starting in about April this year, we were really busy, and we're sort of heading into, I guess, what you would call a bit of a downtime for Catl. But we've been playing every weekend still. Just no long runs of shows, no like 2 and 3 week things, but keeping busy. So yeah.
I was wondering what the connection to France is, because I see that you guys play in France a lot when you're over there, and now it turns out it's Beast Records.
Yes. So light is going off. Yes. It's mostly because of Beast. Like when we first started touring, our first tour in Europe was a real mishmash of countries. We did 6 countries in 2 weeks, starting in Belgium and ending up in Serbia, which included, if I'm not mistaken, 0 dates in France, but a whole bunch of other great stuff. And slowly kind of over the years, it morphed. Like we were originally touring more in Germany. And then once we got hooked up with Beast Records, then the France connections kind of started becoming more solid. So it was really those guys. They connected us with a great festival that we played last summer in the northern part of France. The festival is called the Benique Folk and Blues Fest. And it's like a 60,000 person attendance type festival. It's nuts. It's like a small town, but really incredibly run for 60,000 people. Like I wasn't really sure what to expect, but it was outstanding. It was really a positive experience. And Catl didn't play to 60,000 people, but we probably played to like 20,000 people.
Only 20?
Yeah, just like a scant 20,000 people.
That's disappointing.
Such a disappointment. But no, it was great. It's been really great. And we've been back to that town of Benique a handful of times, not again to play the festival, but to play at this great little venue there called Le Chalon qui Passe. And yeah, again, Beast Records, every time we go over there, they book us a few shows in their hometown city of Rennes and surrounding area, and they've all been great. So we've just kind of continued to branch out from there.
That's cool. We've never done France.
It's great.
It's interesting. You kind of, it's like you find a home base or something. It's weird. Like I tour over there with Sarah Smith, and we've done mostly Germany. Germany seems to be the place we wind up.
Germany's great.
Germany's awesome to play, and we love it.
Yeah.
And then we drift into the Netherlands for depending on the tour. a bunch of shows or a handful of shows.
Yeah.
And we've dabbled. We were in Czech Republic for one. We were in Austria for one. Have you done Austria?
Yeah. We have played a couple shows in Austria. Yeah. A couple times in Vienna.
Oh, man. Vienna.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful city. And one time in a tiny town called Feldbach, which is really cool. And we've got a great friend there named Didi, who is awesome. At this place called, I think it's Cafe Glam. It is definitely not a cafe, but it is super cool. Great rock and roll venue. And we've only played there once, but they've got a giant photo of us on their wall. So
amazing.
That feels good. But yeah, Germany is great. Like they're so organized over there, which I love as my own slightly organizationally obsessed, band mama. I love how organized they are. It's like show up at 4 p.m., load in your stuff at 4:15 p.m., load the gear onto the stage 4:30 p.m. Like everything is very calculated to the minute on paper, but then you arrive and their hospitality and kindness is outstanding.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not uptight. They want to make sure you've got a drink and you're happy before anything else happens. So I love, just to generalize, I love the Germans, and they've only treated us with absolute kindness and respect. But you have to book really far in advance for those German shows, which I don't know how involved you are in that process or not, but generally you want to be booking like 8 months in advance with those guys, which is a lot, but not impossible, certainly. But France is a little looser, so it's been good in that way too. Like if I've got a whole bunch of dates in Western Germany, we can just easily bop over to France and I can be booking shows, 3 and 4 months out instead of 8 to 10 months out, and that's a little easier at times to deal with. So
this is a wonderful thing about Europe is that you can pop in and out of all sorts of countries within a few hours,
Yeah, totally. It's very cool.
And you come back to Canada and you'd like, oh, so the next show is 10 hours away?
Yeah.
I guess that's all right.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it like? How does France compare to Germany in terms of audiences or crowd reaction? Are they similar? I know that's a general question.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that there's differences. I mean, that's the other thing that's so interesting about touring over there. And as you mentioned, sort of like the proximity of the countries to one another, which is very close compared to Canada, but you cross that border and it's like you're in a totally different world, complete with a different language and so on and so forth. So we've been really well received in both countries. I'd be hard pressed to say exactly like a real difference in terms of the types of reactions, but we generally find the audiences over there, say compared to a Canadian audience or a North American audience, to include our U.S. neighbors, but they're very focused on the show. They are there on time. They are there to have a good time, and they are there for the whole time. Like they're not on their phones. They're not, really talking to their buddies. They're into the show in a very serious way, and that feels really nice. Rather than to feel like wallpaper.
I'm always amazed that there are people there at all. Like we'll play the neighborhood pub in some little town in the eastern part of Germany that you've never heard of. Yeah. And it'll be packed.
I know. No, it's great. I mean, we've kind of marveled at that too. Like our very, very first tour that I mentioned earlier, where we went from Belgium to Serbia, we played on a Monday night in Belgrade. And we were like, well, what the heck's this going to be like? It was the farthest east we'd gone in the tour. And I mean this with no disrespect, but for us, things got weirder and weirder the farther east we went, like in terms of language wise, and organization wise, like in Belgium and Germany, there was at least some language that we could pick up a little bit, and things seemed very organized and well laid out. But you get into Serbia, there's 2 languages, there's a Cyrillic alphabet, and we were just like, oh my God, like what the fuck is going on, So we basically had to be handled. Like we had a guy to take us everywhere, which was incredible and necessary. But yeah, we're playing a small venue, but like a Dakota Tavern in Toronto, 120 to 150 people capacity venue on a Monday night in Belgrade, and it's ramped. And we're like, well, it was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, we're so lucky to have been part of that night, but I think it really is a testament to the promoters over there. They do a great job. And I think even more so than in North America, they're able to make a name for themselves as promoters.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you're a guy in Serbia, Alexander Delabasic is the rock and roll king over there. And if he puts on a cool show, people want to come because they know that Alex is getting the best rock and roll or the best garage rock or the best sort of music in that world. And you want to be at Alex's show. So it doesn't matter if it's Catl that you've never heard of from Canada, you're going to go to the show. And it makes for a better experience for everyone, that kind of loyalty and support.
Oh, I totally agree. I've found that just being from Canada actually brings people out. Like they seem to be interested in these exotic, foreign, wild bands that come.
No, I do think there's a bit of a novelty factor. I mean, they seem, again, just to generalize about my European friends, but they do seem to be really into North American rock and roll music, which bodes well for us. But it was explained to us by one person anyway on our most recent trip there this past June. And their sort of interpretation of it was during the war, when there are lots of American soldiers in France and all over the place, that there would be a lot of North American rock and roll musicians and acts that would come to perform for the troops. So they kind of got, exposed to all this great music, despite the unfortunate war circumstances. And then when the troops left, so did the musicians. They weren't coming over as much as they were during wartime. So, but their love for the music hasn't gone anywhere, So when bands come over, apparently that's part of sort of their tie to this type of music, which is totally interesting.
It's well, if you haven't played the Netherlands, you might consider it.
Yeah, we haven't very much. We did play one show in Amsterdam, and I'm just in the middle of planning a tour for next spring, and we definitely plan to be back in the Netherlands. I'm probably going to fly in and out of Amsterdam, so I might be trying to connect some shows there this time, which would be great.
Yeah, in fact, we always fly into Amsterdam. It's because our gear guy and our van rental are both in the Netherlands. So
yeah, who's that? Who do you guys work with in the Netherlands?
I'll hook you up.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because we've got some buddies over there too, and one of them does like a van and gear rental kind of thing too. So
we always get our van from the good folks at Peter Schmidt, which is a big transport company. But what sort of vehicle do you guys need? You're two people with a very small setup.
Yeah, we don't need a vehicle. It's the gear thing. Like we usually just rent a car at an airport. Whatever we fly into. Yeah. And basically we try and rent the smallest vehicle that our stuff will fit into, because as you know, you're dealing with really narrow streets, generally speaking, and parking is a nightmare.
Right.
So having a van, we can avoid having a van. Definitely. It's more the gear, like, renting an amp for Jamie. He flies with one guitar, but maybe we'd rent another guitar or, what have you. So I actually usually fly over with my drums.
Do you really?
I do.
Both of them?
All two of them. the whole kit.
How do you do that? How do you actually, what's the actual process for that?
Thank you for asking. My snare drum is my carry-on, one of my carry-ons.
Oh, really?
It just looks like a large hat box, right?
It does, yeah.
So that goes in the overhead compartment. And if I'm really pressed for space, because we generally are pressed for space, I'll open up my snare and hide other stuff in it, whether that's some extra clothing items or a few more CDs or something of that sort.
Do you actually take the head off the snare and put stuff in it?
I do. That is what I do. I do that.
That's very smart.
Thank you. And similarly with the floor tom, it's quite the procedure, but I also take off the head and we fill it with mostly merchandise like t-shirts, CDs. We bring our own microphones and cables and some other crap, and I just stuff the whole drum to its maximum capacity weight, and then package the whole thing back up, and off it goes. So it doubles as our merch vessel.
Smart.
And a drum. So yeah, it works out.
That's very smart. See, with the Sarah band, we're a 4-piece, and so we need a van, like a Sprinter for real. Yeah. And they bring guitars, but we rent a whole backline, PA, the whole thing.
Yeah. Right.
Drums.
Right.
So we need a lot of space, and it works, but man, trying to drive that thing around. Oh,
I can't imagine.
It's dicey. It's dicey at times.
Yeah, it must suck. One time we had, sort of by accident, we ended up with like this weird, very long station wagon, and literally all of the Europeans were like turning their heads when we would drive by, because they were like, what the fuck is that? And they generally liked it. Like, people would stop us and come and like look at the car while we're trying to unload our gear and stuff. It was very weird. People just couldn't understand, this car arriving. It was like a bit of a spectacle.
Was it one of those ones with 2 wheels on the back and one at the front in the middle? I love those.
I wish that it was, but it wasn't. But it was also oddly short, and Jamie's like quite a tall man.
Yes,
so if he leaned forward at all, he would hit his head on the roof of the car. It was it was very unfortunate, actually, in all aspects.
You get into some weird situations, don't you?
Yes, you do.
It's great, though. It really is.
No, it's so great. We've been touring over there for like 3.5, almost 4 years now, and I can't remember if we've been there 6 or 7 times. It's always totally weird, but totally great. Like, it's definitely very different over there in all the positive ways, mostly, and like just a few very weird ways. Like there's a lot of no toilet seats in France.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I don't really understand that at all. And I get a little tired of that after being over there for a month. It's like, I just want to know for sure that there's going to be a toilet seat.
I can see that.
Yeah. It's the simple things sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too graphic here, but in the Netherlands and in certain parts of Germany, they have these weird long toilets.
Yes.
Like, there's a little hole for water at the front and then a shelf behind it.
Yeah.
Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Which we in the band describe as the poo shelf. Because, right?
I think that's what it's actually for, though. I've heard it referred to as a name, and now I can't remember the name, but I have at one point in my life learned the name for such a toilet.
I find it very unnerving.
It is. And you never know where to flush. Like, sometimes there's the handle up at the top, you pull something down. Sometimes you're pushing a button over here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all very confusing.
Touring is such a hardship,
It really is.
So, Sarah Kay, first of all, it's snowing today. I don't know if it's snowing where you are.
Oh, well, I can't see a window right now, but when I last looked out the window, it was not yet snowing here in Toronto.
Well, it's beginning to snow here, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in Toronto?
I did grow up in Toronto, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, technically, actually, I'm a Toronto Islander.
Are you?
I am, yeah. I'm one of those rarities. So
I thought you were a bit of an Islander. I could just kind of tell by your demeanor.
Got a bit of a whiff of island about me.
Just a bit superior, a little bit breezy, yeah.
Yeah, we like to think of ourselves that way, definitely.
Like this huge moat around your whole neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
Planes taking off.
Yeah. So I mean, we moved off when I was about 8. So I've been in, Toronto proper for many more years than that. But yeah, Toronto born and raised.
Toronto born and raised. Was music always the dream for you?
Is music the dream for me?
Is it now? Was it? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I've always I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing right now. You know what I mean? Let's put it that way. I always had a deep, deep affection for music. I just sort of was something that I always felt, as a lot of us do. You know, I'm certainly not special in that way, but a deep connection. I'd latched onto certain things really early in my life, things that I still listen to this day pretty obsessively.
Like what? Tell us.
Like one of my very first musical loves ever was Sam Cooke, for example.
Really?
And, you know, that's a classic that I can always go back to and I can never get tired of and can pretty much always listen to Sam Cooke. And it's comforting, and he's just got this beautiful velvety voice, and the music is great. And but yeah, as a very young kid, that was certainly one of my first musical memories. But my parents were really enthusiastic about music too. My father used to play, and still does actually, in bands. You know, he used to at one point in his life tour, and then he kind of, you know, settled down with my mom and hung up his touring boots or whatever. But he still plays recreationally with a few cover bands, and so that was definitely.
He was a drummer, right?
Yeah, he is.
And it's his snare drum that you play?
That's absolutely right.
I remember this now.
Yeah,
okay,
good one, John. Yeah.
Go on.
So Dad, Rob Kirkpatrick, still plays with a couple of bands, and they're all very supportive of me doing this weird thing, which is nice, you know, to have some understanding about it, rather than why the heck are you choosing to do this strange thing that's not necessarily always the most lucrative, let's say. You know what I mean? I think that people that are driven to do what we're doing, you and I both, have some sort of weird twist in them that sort of forces them in a way to do what they're doing. You know, like I feel very compelled to do this thing, even though, again, at times maybe it's not the smartest choice. There is certainly a romanticism about it. But again, as you and I both know, you know, there's absolutely wonderful and magical things about it. There's real highs, but the reality of touring is it can be a real low too. It's stressful. Sometimes you're not sleeping very much, if at all. And, you know, not always by your own choice, but just circumstantially, it can be difficult to get a good night's sleep. And, Jamie and I operate as a full-on two-piece. You know, we don't have any extra help with drivers or roadies lugging our stuff. So it just becomes a real big physical burden to carry out all of that stuff as a duo. So now I've strayed very far from your original question of my father playing music, but
no, I want to go where you want to go. I mean, it's the support thing is important. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
People look at me sometimes like I have two heads. Like there's kind of two reactions. There's like people think it's super cool that I'm doing what I'm doing, even at the sort of modest level at which I'm doing it. Yeah. And that's great. Yeah. And then other people are like, so, you know, you making enough money?
Yeah, right.
And what they don't know is that question's going through my head 24/7. Like, sure. As an indie musician, it's really, really difficult. And I feel a lot of personal pressure on myself to be like, dude, we need to step it up somehow. You know what I mean? Like, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I don't know if you guys do or not. It's maybe a different situation, but yeah, it's nice that people close to you support what you do because you need it.
Absolutely. No, again, it's in its own way, it's such a strange thing. It's nice to have someone kind of on the inside that understands it, you know, like my father does, for sure. You know, he never had the opportunity to go to Europe and do some of the things that we've been able to do, but he used to tour all over Canada. So he understands the lifestyle. I mean, in those days, he was going and playing at like the Holiday Inn in their lounge or whatever. And they'd have like a week. Yeah, totally awesome. They'd have like a week at the Holiday Inn and like, you know, somewhere on the East Coast of Canada, and then, you know, go to another Holiday Inn for the next week kind of thing, Thunder Bay or wherever, you know.
That used to be the game, right? Like
totally.
Bands would do like five nights.
Yeah.
Pack up, drive to the next town, do 5 nights, and you could actually be on the road all year if you wanted on that circuit and make a living. I don't know how long, maybe 30 years ago, but that circuit no longer exists. You don't really do that anymore. But your dad was part of that. That's cool.
Yeah, totally. No, it is neat. It is neat. It gave me a different kind of insight into that because again, that's certainly not how we're doing things. We're very nomadic and in a different city every single night.
Yeah. We I mean the last tour we did was 6 weeks and we did 34 nights. And there were a couple of like stay overnights, but for the most part, yeah, it was a new city every night, which I think is great. It's cool.
It is great.
But
it is great.
I did a running tally and we did somewhere close to 8,300 kilometers and 105 hours of just driving to the gig. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a grind. Really is.
Yeah. It is. And again, like, you know, highlighted by these beautiful moments. But people don't realize, again, that it is a grind, you know, that they think like the glamorous side of it, you know, whatever that is. But yeah, no, it is neat to get to see. I mean, I've seen a lot of places now, you know, and when I was a younger person, I didn't really travel. Like my parents were pretty much homebodies, despite what I said about my father being in a touring band himself when he was much, much younger. But my parents weren't travelers. Therefore, I was not either. And it wasn't until I was well into my 30s with this band that, you know, we've been traveling like crazy. And I've been to weird small towns in the US and in Europe that I never would have gone to otherwise if it wasn't for this band, you know, and they're not necessarily the tourist hubs that one would consider a travel destination. You know, if you were going there as a true tourist and just traveling, but you end up in weird and interesting circumstances. And to me, it's kind of also shown me that, that those weird small towns, those are the places that always excite me the most, you know, rather than going to another big city. As we touched on earlier, I live in a big city. I live in Toronto. Yeah. And I love my home. You know, the more that I travel, the more I also love Toronto. But I don't really feel the need to go and hang out in another big city, you know, so much. There are big cities that I love, but there's something really special about those smaller towns. They tend to also be more hungry for music because maybe not a lot of touring bands go there. And again, that feels great. You know, like as a musician, you really just want a platform to be able to play your music in front of people that want to hear it.
That's a cool thing because, you know, when I think you guys and us probably played similar kinds of venues, right?
Yeah, probably.
Neighborhood pub, rock clubs. We've branched off into a couple of theaters on the last run, which is cool. But for the most part, like if you're like a bigger touring band and you're playing 5,000 seaters or whatever, you're probably just going to the big cities where they have that venue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And it's like this way you kind of get to see much, much more of regular life in a way. Like you breeze in and breeze out. It's not like you get to spend a lot of time, but
no, but I do think that I think you do have the opportunity to connect with people potentially in a different way. Again, because, you know, you're playing those smaller venues, there's less people in attendance, and you probably, if you want to, you get a chance to hang out and have some drinks with them after or before the show, you know, and you get to chat with these people from this town and sort of, I don't know, often I don't know about you guys, but often we're staying with the person that's promoting the show or a friend. Sometimes it's a band department, yes, but oftentimes you're brought into someone's home, you know, and you're in a small town, again, in the middle of Austria, and you sort of get to see what life is like there a little bit, which is a really cool insight. And again, not sort of the normal touristy thing. You know, I love being able to go to an art gallery or a cathedral or something like that when I can, because there's so much old, cool stuff over in Europe, especially. But yeah, it's those other opportunities that really I cherish. Like, we always try and hang out with this fella whenever we're over there. He's in a small town called Mönchengladbach that's on the western side of Germany, kind of near the Netherlands.
Yes, they have a very famous football team. Go on.
Do they?
Yes, they do. Borussia Mönchengladbach, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
And the reason that team is so famous, in my mind, is because it's so fun to say Mönchengladbach.
It is really a fun word to say, definitely.
Sorry, go on.
That is also one of the reasons why I like that town. But our friend Vago, he's involved in a multitude of things. But recently he's gotten involved in a custom motorcycle shop.
Oh, cool.
And so last time we played there, we played at his custom motorcycle shop. And they set out like they had a huge backyard with a barbecue. Like they made it, the whole thing was this huge day-long like event.
That's great.
And then everyone's hanging out at the motorcycle shop and drinking and having a good time. And then, and then Catl plays a set and we all continue to hang out and have a great time. But we happened to have a day off with Vago. So we stayed at his house. We did our laundry, which is,
that's such a luxury.
One of the unglamorous sides of touring too, but it's like there's a certain point where you're like, should I just burn all of the clothes that I've brought with me? It gets a little rank. But anyway, we got to do our laundry with Vago, and he just had this incredible spread of food and drink all day. We just ate and drank, and it was. I mean, he wanted to do it from the kindness and generosity of his heart. That made Vago really, really happy. But it was such a gift to us, this one little calm moment in the storm and really good food and really genuine kindness. And it just, I don't know, it makes you feel grateful for the hospitality of others. And it kind of makes you reconsider how hospitable we are in North America sometimes.
I don't know. Not to interrupt you, but I've found the same thing. Like people take such good care of us. It's amazing. It
is outstanding.
Like I could just tell stories of incredible things that people do for us. Like Sarah has like a loyal, small but proud fan base over there that actually follows us around. Like they take their holidays based on when Sarah's coming. Like there's a hardcore group of them, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And there was a point during the last tour where there was a certain weight of drumstick that I needed. I won't bore the audience with the details, but we were playing rooms where I needed a certain kind of stick.
Yeah.
And I had one set of them because I don't use them very often, but it's like they're getting chewed up. I need more. And I just sort of put it out there. If anybody can get a couple of sets of 8As into my hand, that'd be great. A few nights later, one of the fans shows up with a baggie and in our two, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's
totally.
Like this kind of stuff happens all the time. And the generosity and the things that people give to us, the hospitality is absolutely wonderful. But I've seen that here too. But over there, it's just like, it's everywhere we go. People are it's like a weird, like a more community-oriented. Ken, my buddy, would say they're more community-oriented. Like it's more about we and less about me over there. Maybe? Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I've certainly been trying to kind of put my finger on it the more that we've been over there. And yes, absolutely. There are incredibly generous people that we've met in Canada and the US and all of our touring too. So certainly not to discredit my Canadian and American friends, but again, like the way that someone kind of anecdotally told me this story about, a lot of conversations over there tend to be about sort of understanding this cultural difference and that cultural difference, not unlike the conversation that you and I are having, or about words or wordplay. Like there's a lot of comparison type conversations happening over there. And one friend said about our parties in North America, how strange they find it that we would have a like BYOB type party, like bring your own beverages. And to them, that's absurd. If you have a party, you supply everything. You supply all the food, all the drink, and no one thinks twice about it. You know what I mean? And that might seem like a small difference, but I think that difference extends, a little bit more largely in the sense that we're talking about, that hospitality and kindness that they just don't think for a second. They're just like, yes, what's mine is yours, and I will give you all of it.
That's an interesting thing, And I suppose if you're a European country, you are so in such proximity and so exposed to so many other cultures. It's, there's kind of like a pan-Europe thing, but everybody's a little bit different within that. So it makes sense that they would have cultural conversations because the guy on the left and the guy on the right are completely different countries and they do things a little bit different. Over here, we've got the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, we dare to compare a lot between us and them, but that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and again, we do have a very similar culture musically to the US.
Oh, yeah.
In the way that touring happens for bands and the way that concerts are set up and in what the expectations are in terms of hospitality. I mean, for the listener that isn't in a band and hearing us go on about the joys of touring in Europe, the reason that we're talking about it so much and so excited about it is because of the fact that in Canada and the US, there just isn't the support system for bands the way that there is over there. The fact of the matter is, 9.9 times out of 10, you're paid better. And there aren't 2 drink tickets. There's unlimited drinks.
There are no drink tickets. So
there are no drink tickets.
They don't exist. You're like, oh, you want another drink? Great. The band wants another drink. That's great. They're having fun.
Totally. And I mean, that's not to say that you're going to abuse your privileges, but, it's just nice to not have to fight for everything all the time.
Right.
It's not have to constantly be an advocate for yourself and just demand things that make your life more livable, like a decent pay day and, and food. Like in Europe, you're given dinner, if not also breakfast. And it's like that helps us immensely. That takes a huge layer of stress off of our day, logistically figuring out, okay, I've got to get up at this time so I can eat this. Where am I going to eat? How many hours do I have to drive? Where am I going to get dinner? What time do I have to load in and set up? Your day is cut into these little chunks of time, and to have those little things taken care of, it's not such a little thing.
No, it's huge.
So Anyway, so again, it's like North America, Canada, and the US both haven't quite figured that out yet. And I don't know if we ever will. Again, there are some performance opportunities that allow for that. And if you're a bigger band than Catl, then maybe you're getting that. And I'm happy for you. But for us, it's still a struggle. You always have to demand. I just feel like I'm always trying to demand not more, but what we're worth. You know what I mean? We've been a band for 10 years and I feel like, well, anyway, in order for us to continue doing what we're doing, we definitely have to make certain choices in our life, So, yeah.
That's an interesting thing. The other remarkable difference I've noticed between playing over there and playing here, maybe you've had this experience. It'll only happen once, where you'll be in Europe and they'll say, you're going to stay in the band house tonight as part of the contract. And when you're in Canada, you go, oh no. Oh no. Not the band house. I can't do that. And we had that experience. I think the first time was in Vienna, 2017. Get to this really cool venue in Vienna. And Vienna's the most beautiful place.
It's a beautiful city.
You're staying at the band house tonight. And we went, oh man, I hope this is going to be okay. And the place was magnificent.
Yeah.
It would have been one of the nicest hotels I've ever stayed in.
Yeah.
And every band house we've stayed in Europe has been wonderful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. For those who don't know, in North America, you're taking your life in your hands. Staying at the band house, usually.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's true. Everywhere we travel, we're always, I would say, careful travelers. We're weary about things like theft, and we're carried about leaving our belongings or our instruments just because we've heard too many horror stories from other bands about shit getting stolen and this and that and the other thing. It happens. And it happens even to careful people. So, but yeah, for the most part, again, like I said, our experience over there has been, the accommodations are always varied. Sometimes it is the band apartment, and sometimes it's staying with someone, and sometimes it's a hotel, rarely, but sometimes it's a hotel. And for the most part, they've all been really great, and sometimes those real pinch me moments where you're like, how did little Sarah Kirkpatrick get here? I don't belong here. This is just too nice, but, there's definitely been some moments, like one time on our first tour, we slept on the floor of what was basically like an office building.
Oh, wow.
In Prague.
Yeah.
and showered in a category of showers that I like to call murder showers. You know, like it just, I think that paints a certain picture, and water was spraying everywhere. Like no matter what you tried to do, it was a catastrophic shower. And it was the middle of December, and we're sleeping on a floor, and the promoter guy, who was very lovely, but just sort of, I guess, hadn't totally thought about our well-being and comfort, I was like, oh, well, didn't you bring your sleeping bag and your pillow? And we're like, no, we're from Canada, and we just have,
right.
Like the bare bones. So we ended up wearing every single item of clothing that we brought with us, and sort of laughed ourselves to, a few minutes of sleep. And it was definitely one of those, why are we here? Why are we in a band? Why are we doing this moments?
Yeah.
But what a difference a day makes. And the next day we traveled to a totally different city, and it was an incredible experience. And we were really, really well taken care of. So again, lots of amazing moments, but filled with very incredible highs and at times really incredible lows, and for the most part, the good outweighs the bad. Otherwise we wouldn't continue to do it. But, again, as I said, Jamie and I have been doing this together for 10 years, over 10 years, playing in Catl together. We've been touring in the US for over 7 years, and in Europe, again, I think getting close to 4 years. And I'm sure that there will come a day when maybe that's not a lifestyle choice that we want to be making on all fronts, financially and just stress levels and otherwise. But so far that day hasn't come. And so far it's been a really amazing gift to get to do all that.
It is, yeah.
Cool stuff.
It is. It's, yeah, it is. It's amazing. What keeps you going?
I really love to play the drums.
People need to see you. People need to see you play the drums, because Sarah Kay is among the most unique drummers I've ever met.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that.
It's true, because, we're 45 minutes in here, but Catl is a 2-person, what we call juke joint blues band. So it's like twangy blues, rock and roll, and Sarah plays a floor tom and a snare drum with a tambourine on it. Mm-hmm. That's her whole setup. Mm-hmm. And you murder that stuff, and you sing, and your voice is great and everything. And it's a unique thing to watch. And the best thing to do, maybe even better than watching videos, is just to go online and look for pictures of Sarah playing her drum setup. And the pictures really are worth 1,000 words, because they say everything. You take the best drummer photos of anybody I've ever seen.
Oh, thanks. Well, I have to attribute that to the photographer's ability too,
But you are so visual. That's the thing. It's like, it doesn't work if you're not visual, and you 100% are, which is so great.
Yeah, I like I said, I really love playing the drums. I used to play the organ in this band. Were drummers before me. And Jamie was the one that suggested that I stand up. I'd never played drums in my life, to embarrass myself. I used to, going back to my musical influences and my love of music, I used to dance when I was a much smaller Sarah. And like tap dancing and all that stuff. So Jamie was like, well, just dance. And so I do, I love music, and I wiggle and flail and I leap around. And it's sort of, I'm not going to lie, like it's kind of a cathartic experience for me too. It's like all the frustration and stress of the less glamorous sides of rock and roll, I get to exercise.
You do.
When I'm on stage.
You get to pound in ways that I don't get to pound anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you've been cooped up in a car all day and been kind of sedentary, I want to move and jump around. If I've been on the computer and booking shows and again, doing the business end of the rock and roll thing, I want to get up on stage and I want to flail around. So that's just how it comes out.
It works. It works. I haven't been able to really flail since I quit Hearts.
Yeah, man.
Sarah's music, it's a different animal, and I miss that.
Well, I guess you just never know where things are going to go. Like, again, I didn't know that I was going to end up in Catl. I was in a female garage rock band before that, and it just happened that as they were petering out, as we were petering out, these fellas in Catl were looking for a female that had a vintage organ, as it were. Anyway.
I'm showing a lot of restraint right now. I hope you know that.
Me too. Anyway, I played a Krumar Cougar organ, which is for the keyboard nerds out there. It's not unlike a Vox Continental, which is like what a lot of 60s bands. Like it's sort of that kind of real serious tone. Anyway, that's how I first joined Catl, was playing this vintage organ. And then, 5 years in and 2 other drummers later, Jamie and I are a romantic couple as well as an on-stage couple. And we're fed up with searching for other drummers. And Jamie says, well, why don't you just learn to play the drums? So it wasn't something that I was planning on, to become this flailing, leaping, like ape woman. But, it found me, and here we are. You know what I mean? So
that's an interesting observation. I like that you said it found me. Like, do you approach life this way? Are you a person who lets life happen?
That sort of implies that I'm a lot less stress and anxiety ridden than I am. No, I mean, I have to be a real planner, in a way, because again, I'm the booking agent manager for the band. I do a lot of our logistical stuff. And I'm good at it. Like, if I was really good at it, we'd be really fucking famous and I'd be making so much money. So I'm not. Oh,
that's not down to you. You know as well as I do that weird, lucky things have to happen for that to shake down.
It's true. But no, I have the capacity to be a pretty organized person when I need to. But there's also a component of me that I understand that life just has to happen and things just have to change. It's like very recently, Jamie and I have made a decision, and we don't know how long this is going to last for, but our visas for the U.S. ran out in October 10th. And for the moment, we're just sitting on it. It doesn't mean that we will never renew them, but we're in a period of time right now where, for example, I couldn't accept a show on short notice in the U.S. And we just kind of need a little bit of a break just to reassess and rethink things.
And those are expensive too.
And they're totally expensive. American musicians that come into Canada do not have to do the same thing, do not have to jump through the same hoops, and do not have to pay the same fees.
Right.
So there's a bit of a salt in the wound kind of element to that too for us. Not to mention the political climate. I won't get into it, but there's stuff going on there and here in Canada too. But anyway, we just need to take a step back and rethink things.
Sure.
And I think you have to allow for that. I don't have another plan per se. It's not like we're going to all of a sudden start touring, doing huge Canada-wide tours. We've never done that. We're not going to start now. We can probably realistically only go to Europe 2 or 3 times a year maximum. So it leaves some space for something. So I don't know what that is yet. Right. We've been talking about maybe doing another recording of some kind, but no concrete plans. But if you don't open up that window to allow something else to come in, then you're just cramming your life full of stuff all the time.
There's a quote by Dan Carlin. I don't know if you know Dan Carlin, but he's one of the preeminent podcasters in the world. And he hosts a show called Hardcore History, which is one of my favorite podcasts. None of that matters. What matters is Dan Carlin was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and they were talking about this sort of fate kind of stuff, right? And Dan Carlin said you need to give the universe opportunities to intervene in your life. And I think that's what you're saying. It's like sometimes you just got to leave space. Or the opposite side of that is you got to do things and give the universe an opportunity. That's why this podcast exists. This podcast exists for 2 reasons that you'll appreciate. The first is I got really tired of coming home from tours and being depressed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I needed something to occupy my time and my mental energy and my creative energy. And the other side of it is you need to give the universe opportunities to intervene. So you need to sometimes create a thing and see what happens.
Totally.
Or not create a thing and see what happens. Like you need sometimes to leave space, and that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
not,
for sure.
Not to get all metaphysical here on
Not to get all like heavy and serious and shit.
All woke and stuff.
No, but you really never know what's going to happen in life. Like as much as you plan, as much as you want to control things, I guess maybe it's just a realization again about my my capacity for anxiety and stress to take stuff on. It's like I have to also recognize that there are certain things that I can't control.
Yeah.
And life is just happening. I'm getting older. Jamie's getting older. Things in life are always there's certain elements that are constantly changing. So who am I to dictate and determine what's next for me or Catl, and things have to evolve in some way. So, we're still continuing to leap and flail for the moment.
I love it. Leaping and flailing with Sarah Kay. I think that's what I'll call this episode.
It's like my new exercise video.
I like it. That's the name of a record. I think that's an album.
My book of poems, maybe.
Do you have a book of poems?
No, hell no. Oh no.
You should
Definitely
not. You should do a book of poems.
Maybe.
I think you should. and a drum instructional video where you explain to people how to be as visual as you are on stage.
Yeah, it's mostly tassel dresses,
I want to switch to your setup.
Do it, man. All the power to you.
I can't play the bass drum to save my life anyway, so who needs it?
Who needs it?
When I was on the Sarah tour just now, I played kick, snare, floor 90% of the shows, like super stripped down. I could strip further, just floor tom and snare drum.
Yeah. Dude, it's awesome. I mean, again, for us, partly it was like an aesthetic choice.
It's cool. It's very cool.
But it's really inspiring too, like in a way to have that limitation, like only 2 drums. Well, what can you do with only those 2 things?
Yeah.
And I don't know, someone else might have a different opinion on our music, but I think for 2 drums, I can get a whole bunch of different feelings out of that for, a wide variety of song types. So no, it's good for me. I love the simplicity and I love the challenge.
It certainly does make loadout easier.
Yeah, it does.
So one of my prized possessions, this is what I'll end on. One of my prized possessions from my entire musical career is a pair of drumsticks signed by Sarah Kay from Catl.
What?
Do you remember this? You do remember.
Yes.
Call the office.
Yes.
When Hearts played with Catl and somehow Sarah's stick bag got misplaced. And so she borrowed a pair of sticks from me.
I did.
And they have never been used again. They sit on my shelf signed by you.
Get out, man. That's so nice. Thank you. That's such a great compliment. Yeah.
It is. I'm not just blowing smoke when I say you're one of the most unique drummers I know. You absolutely are.
I appreciate it deeply. I mean, no, that makes me feel really good. I mean, you're a great friend and you're a great drummer. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, doing what I did was based on not a lot of thinking, Jamie just kind of saying, hey, why don't you stand up and wiggle around and play the drums? But what I didn't realize when I said yes to that, but there was also a lot of like self-consciousness about stepping into, not to make it about this, but into a world that was mostly male. There's a lot of guy drummers out there and a lot of male drummers that I respect really deeply. Yeah. So there was a certain fear factor there for me. And I felt like I didn't want to just be another pretty girl playing the drums. I wanted to be good. So that compliment means a heck of a lot to me, John.
It totally
Thank you.
Does. And I mean it. This program is becoming like the female drummer advocacy show. You're the third female drummer to appear on this program.
Oh yes, I'm not only a member. I'm I don't know.
You complete the trifecta, and I'm talking heavyweights here. The first was Sarah Tomek, who plays for Steven Tyler.
Awesome.
And the second was Emily Dolan Davies. At one point, the drummer for The Darkness.
Awesome.
And some other cool people. And Sarah Kay from Catl. How about that?
Well, I feel privileged and honored to be in that group, so that's great.
All right, Sarah Kay, thank you so much for being on the show again. And I will talk to you very, very soon. Good luck with everything.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, John. Really appreciate it. Sorry Jamie couldn't be here, but we'll see you soon.
Who needs him?
Yeah, right.
All right, we'll talk again. Take care.
See ya.
Okay, bye. Thank you once again, gentle listener, for taking in today's show. And thank you to Sarah Kay for being such an inspiring guest. If you want to know more about Sarah Kay and the rest of my guests, go to www.john-huff.com. That's JOHN-HUFF.com. You can also find the show on Facebook at The John Huff Podcast. If you're an Instagram person, you can find me at JW_Huff for content that may or may not appear on the Facebook page. If you're an Apple Podcast person, please do me a big favor and leave a rating and review of the show, preferably a positive one. That's all the time we have for today, but I'll be back very soon. Until then, keep your wits about you, and remember, good things happen when you put yourself out there. Bye for now. Based on this weather, it might be better to do John Huff Podcast toques.